How's it going, everyone? Roger here, Rants About Tech. If you're new here, welcome. Consider hitting the subscribe button for me, and to the crew. So what you just saw there was me calibrating the roughness tester and showing you that the plate that I had for calibration says 1.56, which is the roughness and micrometers of that particular plate. Now, I took the reading of that plate with the actual roughness tester, and I got the same reading that was on the plate, letting you know that the reading the machine is getting is the same roughness that the plate says it should be, which means that the calibration is right on. So that was just me going through the whole calibration with you guys. Now, the purpose of this particular video is to talk about how ceramic nibs affect your eInk device screen over time. Now, there's been a lot of talk about what the accumulative effect of writing on your eInk displays with ceramic nibs will do, if it will cause damage, how long it would take to cause that damage. I don't know those things. What I can tell you is that I've been using ceramic nibs on eInk devices for over a year at this point. If we're talking about the Supernote platform, I've been using the ceramic nibs on the Go 10.3 since I've had it, since its release over 6 months ago. So this is something I've had extensive knowledge about and have been using for a very long time. And I got the roughness tester about 6 months ago. I'll put the date up here that I received it. When I got the device, I took roughness tests, and so I know the roughness of the device when I got it. I took the measurements then, but I didn't publish the measurements. I didn't go and make a video on the measurements. So, I'm gonna not even talk about those measurements as they apply to what we're doing here today. Although I can say there's no difference. But there are portions on the screen that don't get use, and let's talk about that for a second. So as we can see here on the Supernote Manta here, we have these bezels around the screen here. Now, there's a couple assumptions we need to make about these bezels so we can go on with making the measurements. The first thing is the fact that we have to agree that no one writes on the borders, right? Like, why would you write on the borders? Now, I can write on the borders, but it doesn't have any effect, right? It's just, there's no need to do it. You can't actuate anything on the borders. It can't accept any input. You can't write on the borders. So for all intents and purposes, the borders are useless for everyday device use. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure the roughness of the bezels here, and then I'm going to measure the roughness of the writing area. I've been using this particular device here for over a year, and I've only exclusively used the ceramic nibs on this, my own and the Supernote nibs. So we're going to test the Supernote Nomad here, and we're also going to test the Go 10.3. We're going to test the bezels because I haven't used the Boox pen on this at all. I've only used exclusively ceramic on this as well. So whether it's Supernote ceramic or my own ceramic, we'll be able to tell if there's any difference. But yeah, without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the actual surface tester. We won't go into detail because I have a video on this thing coming. But a lot of talk about this has prompted me to make this video kind of out of order. I did not want to do this right now, but let's talk about this a little bit. So this is a roughness tester right here, and it measures roughness in the RA unit, which is average roughness. Essentially, this is a standard used throughout industries that want to test roughness, no matter what the material, right? So this is what I'm going to use to test all the roughnesses of the surfaces of eInk tablets that I have, and that information will be posted on the website as well. So let's go ahead and get a RA reading for the Go 10.3 first. Let's see what we have here. And we're only going to test the bezel here. So let's put it right here. All right, so we're on the bezel. I think we can agree that's where we are. This particular device uses a diamond tip to kind of go along the surface to measure any the peaks and the valleys. There we go. It measures the peaks and the valleys of the surface with a diamond tip. I thought that was very interesting when I came across that. So we should get a reading that's really close to what the pristine state of the surface should be. All right, so we got 0.634. All right, let's go ahead and put this in the book here. 0.63 and 4. All right, we got 0.64 and 5. Let's get one more. Let's get one more reading. 3. We got 0.64 and 4. So we're leaning more towards the 0.64, 0.644 roughness here. So let's go ahead and take 3 surface roughnesses or surface tests of the device here. Let's go right in the middle here and just below the top, because that probably gets the most use. We're just going to go to the most extreme case here, and we're going to go ahead and take a reading. Now, if YouTubers can be believed in their calculations, this should be wildly different after 6 months of use. Well over 100 days. About 200 days. So we get 0.67 and 7. Okay, all right. So let's go one more time, or 2 more times here. So since we got an increase in the roughness in the middle of the device, we're going to have to test another area. Maybe we'll go right in the middle of the device to see what we get there. So we'll test it in a few areas here. It looks like we're going to have to. 0.624. Okay. Well, that's dropping down. Okay, all right. Let's go one more here. All right, so we got 0.65 and 9. So for a second set of settings, we get 0.691. All right, so we got 0.687. So what we're going to do now is I want to test this bottom bezel here to see the roughness of this bottom portion of the bezel. This is a part of the bezel. This is a part of the device that doesn't get written on as well, right down here. So let's go ahead and test this. It should be comparable numbers. Let's go ahead and move, and we'll go with bottom bezel. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and take this measurement out the bottom here and see what we get. We should get a measurement that's relatively close to the side bezel measurements we got. We'll take a look and see. 0.630. So yeah, very close. We'll take 3 in this spot right here. All right, we get 0.617. All right, that's below what we normally would get. Let's test a different area here. All right, so last measurement on the bottom bezel, slightly different position, 0.703. So we're gonna go ahead and test the bezel here for roughness to see what kind of reading we get from this particular portion, and then we'll test the surface to see what reading we get there and see if it's wildly different. Like we just saw in the Go 10.3, there was no difference or no degradation that was detectable right now. Maybe over the course of the life of the device, maybe, but not in the first 6 months to a year of the device. All right, so we got a higher roughness on the Supernote Nomad here for their surface. So let's go ahead and write up something for this, the Nomad. All right, so the first reading we got is 0.877. Let's take another reading. I have a feeling that these readings would be more consistent just because this was made specifically for their whole platform, right? Not just for a particular device in the case of the Go 10.3. So we got 0.841 for the second reading. We go slightly further down here and take another reading. 1.032. Let's do the bottom bezel here. All right, so bottom bezel we get 1.096. So next reading we got 1.042. One thing's for sure that the Supernote roughness is higher than that of the Go 10.3. So yeah. So the next one we got is on par with what we got at the top bezel, which is 0.827. All right, so there is some variation even within the roughness of this particular display, just like the Go 10.3, so no surprise there. Now that we got the bezel measurements there, we have something to gauge the surface friction or surface roughness with. So let's go ahead and test the surface roughness here. We'll test same spot we did at the top middle here, and then we'll do the middle. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so we get first test is 0.905. Let's go ahead and get the second test here, 0.919. So we got 0.823 right there. Let's get a second reading right at that spot, and then we'll go to a third spot and get 2 readings. All right, we got 0.835. Okay, so they go back up 1.015, 1.010. All right, so I'm going to take over for Pastor Rod there. He hadn't had a chance to take a look at the data and do any analysis on it. Future Rod here, I've had a chance to do all of that, so let's go ahead and talk about it. So Pastor Rod touched on the scientific method, which is the observation and the theory, which the observation was that ceramic didn't do damage to the eInk devices that I own. That's the observation that I had. The theory was, in turn, that ceramic doesn't do any damage to the devices that I own. And we're going to talk about those two devices. Well, I own multiple, but the two that we're going to talk about is the Go 10.3 and the Supernote Nomad. So after making the observation that it didn't damage them and then coming up with a theory that it didn't damage these devices, I had to devise a test to display this, kind of an experiment. And so what I decided to do was test the bezels, which we are working under the assumption that they're in pristine condition. Now the bezels, because these ink devices, the whole display is made out of the same material. So they have a glass sheet that they put over the top, and then sometimes they have a writing surface they put over the top. Sometimes the top itself is just glass that's been etched to create friction. So in the case of the Go 10.3, there's a glass top over it that's been etched to create a writing surface, and in case of the Nomad, there's a soft writing film surface over the top of it. So it's kind of made for the ceramic, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So that was a test, testing the bezels, which is the same surface that is on the writing area, but it should be in pristine condition because no one writes on the bezels, and testing that against the surface that we do write on, which is the writing area, which that difference should tell us whether there's some degradation or not. So we did the test, and let's talk about the results. All right, so now what we have on the screen here are the test results for the Go 10.3. We'll talk about the Supernote Nomad after this. You can see the bezel test on the left, and you can see the writing area tests on the right there. All right, so as we can see here, the bezel tests are pretty consistent until we get to the last test that showed a slightly higher number than what we were getting before. And for the writing area tests, we have pretty much consistency across the board here, nothing too crazy. And this graph is just good to look at the variation in the different tests that we took. So, all right, now to talk about some of the finer details of the test. All right, so up here we have the averages for the bezel test and the averages for the writing test. We have 0.646 for the bezel and 0.671 for the writing area. If there was some degradation, we should see that number go down from the bezel to the writing area. But that number went up, so there's no degradation happening on the Go 10.3 from my year-long use of the device. It's basically not even a month shy of a year right now. So I've basically been using the Go 10.3 with ceramic for a whole year. There doesn't seem to be any degradation. Now, that number went up. That shows that there may be some concentration of friction in the writing area. But regardless of that, there was no degradation, and that was the point here that we were trying to prove. Is there degradation happening with ceramic on the Go 10.3? And the answer, at least in this case, is no. There's no degradation happening. And the percent difference between the bezel and the writing area was 3.8%. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. Like I said, it seems to be that the concentration of friction may be concentrated in the writing area. It also could just mean that we need to do more testing to see what it's like in more areas. More testing is always good. I encourage more testing to be done in this area. Voja is going to be taking some readings as well, so I'm super anxious to see what he finds in this particular realm. But point being, that's the reading that we're getting right now on the Go 10.3. So no degradation happening, at least in this case. All right, so the second set of results we're going to talk about are the results for the Supernote Nomad that we have up here. So we're looking at the graphs for all of the tests for the bezel and the writing area. And as you can see, there's lots of variation here within the bezel and the writing area. More variation than we saw on the Go 10.3 in the readings that is. Also, the average, it looks like, is higher here, so the friction is higher on the Nomad, which I think anyone that has both of these devices could attest to anyway. But the friction is higher on the Nomad than it is on the Go 10.3. Just a couple of things to take note of. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the actual tests and the averages here. So we have all the numbers for the tests here up top, and we also have the average. So for the bezel tests, we have an average of 0.953. And for the Nomad writing area test, that if degradation is happening, that should go down, and that's what we get here for the writing area test, which is 0.918. So we do have a drop in the average roughness between the bezel of the Nomad and the writing area of the Nomad. Again, this is after over a year's worth of use on this particular device. And in that time, it looks like we have a percent difference of 3.7%. So we have the roughness going down by that percentile right there. And this right here is, like I said, after 1 year of use. 3% after 1 year use, to me, is minimal. That's not a lot of wear, especially from someone who writes as much as I do. And I consider myself someone who writes more than the average person would on these devices. So writing the typical amount, or as much as an average person would write on an eInk device, I think you may get maybe 2%. I think normal writing conditions, it may be a lot less than that 3.7%. But regardless, 3% is very minimal degradation over the course of a year. I also outlined here what that would look like over the course of 5 years. Now, there's some debate about what the normal lifespan of the eInk device is. I think it's between 5 and 7 years, just due to software updates and battery dying. If you don't do anything to the device, as far as hardware goes, replace the battery or whatever. In some devices, you can't replace the battery. So I'm sure Ratta, the designers behind the Supernote platform, have done their own tests and decided that that amount of degradation is minimal compared to the life of the actual device. Even with you replacing parts in it, which you can do with the Supernote platform. Super modular platform. You can exchange a lot of parts in there. So that could extend the life of the device, but 5 to 7 years use of the device, you will see very minimal degradation in the friction of your writing surface on the Nomad. And it looks like on the Go 10.3, it may take a lot longer even than that. So those were the results and the analysis of the data that we collected there. Now let's talk about my conclusion. So in conclusion, I think that more testing needs to be done. More testing is always good. The numbers I have can be verified by independent researchers. So anyone who can take RA readings can verify these, so we can get a more nuanced picture of what's actually happening here. And getting multiple verifications never hurts. The next conclusion I have is that ceramic nibs don't damage the eInk devices that I use. I'll continue to do more testing, but at the very least on the 2 devices we tested here today, there wasn't any major damage happening, no damage at all. There may be some wear happening, right, over time, but that wear is very minimal, and within the lifespan of the device is almost negligible. In the case of the Go 10.3, we didn't see any degradation, and like we just talked about, in the case of the Supernote Nomad, very minimal degradation. And if you were to talk to anyone who owns an A5X or A6X, those devices have been around for over 5 years now, and people still use those as their daily driver. Ask any one of them how they're feeling about their writing surface. I guarantee a lot of those people haven't changed out their Feel Right film on their device, and they can probably tell you it still feels pretty freaking good. All right, everyone, that's going to be it for me. This has been a long time coming. I have way more tests coming on surface roughness of all the devices that I own, which is about 10 devices. I have brightness tests coming up. I have ghosting tests coming up. So a lot of lab type stuff happening here on the channel. But it's fun, and this stuff I think needs to be done, and it's about time. All right, everyone, that's going to be it for me. Go ahead and like if you liked, subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content. Oh yeah, thanks to all my channel members right here. You guys are great. I just want to highlight you guys and show the world what awesome looks like. You know what I mean? So thank you to all the members of the channel. You guys are the greatest. And until next time. Take care.